Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to Action for the Soul. Today's Parashat Action for the Soul class is generously dedicated for the return of the hostages and gratitude to the IDF, sponsored by Denise and Leon Aboudi. May we have our hostages home soon, and every single one of our beautiful soldiers should be protected. Parashat Yitro. Here we go again. The Parashat begins with Yitro, telling us that he heard all of the amazing things that have befallen the Jewish people. Pasuk begins by Yishma Yitro Kohen Midyan Choten Moshe et kol asher asa Elokim leMoshe leYisrael amo ki hotzi Hashem et Yisrael miMitzrayim. Last week's parsha concluded with the Amalekites attacking the Jewish people. The Jews were leaving Egypt. The sea had just split. The world had finally become aware of the fact that there is a God, a creator in the universe. And the Amalekites, unclear what motivated the attack. Some say that they were waiting. Midrash says that Esav's brother, Esav, was embarrassed after he lost the firstborn rights to Yaakov, that he instructed his son Amalek to wait. He wanted to move out of Israel. He moved to the Gaza Strip area, which is where the Amalekites were at. And he, near that area, he ends up waiting because he did not want to go down to Egypt to be punished in the same way that Yaakov was being punished. Remember that Abraham was punished for B'ma'edah. He said to God, how am I going to know that you're going to keep your part of the bargain? So Hashem says, your children, your grandchildren will be strangers in a strange land. Esav was aware of this and said, I'm opting out. Yaakov's family ends up going to Egypt. Esav's children are locked away. So some say that Amalek, Esav's grandson, his directive to the children was, as soon as the Jewish people are freed from Egypt, you got to attack. This is your chance to get back your Bechorah. That's one opinion. And that's what prompted them right now. They came out, let's attack. Another opinion says no, that they were out doing their own little war someplace else, and they happened to chance upon a group of people that looked weak and vulnerable, and they took advantage of them. It doesn't really matter. Bottom line is that they were aware of the fact that the war started in a way where all ancient wars actually started this way. You didn't just go ahead and just attack. You had to line everybody up. There was a very specific protocol for what a war looked like. So the Torah tells us that when Moshe sees this in last week's parsha, he says, Yoshua, you go and I'll prepare. You gather the men. It took them a whole entire day to gather their armies to fight one another, while Moshe was the guy who was holding up his hands, reminding the Jewish people that it's only in faith in the God, faith in above, that allows you to overcome the challenges in this world. In the interim, they were winning. Every single time they looked up, when Moshe's hands came down, they were not successful. At the end of the day, they ended up vanquishing and defeating the Amalekites. And this is where the parsha begins. V'yishma Yitro Kohen Midyan Choten Moshe et kol asher asa Elokim leMoshe leYisrael amo ki hotzi Hashem miMitzrayim. So what did he hear? Right? He heard everything that happened. Right? He heard all about that God did for the Jewish people. That happened when he brought them out of Israel, which would include everything. Right? It would include the splitting of the sea, and up until now, it should have included also the Milchemet Amalek. So now what's interesting is Rashi. Rashi comes along and says, V'yishma Yitro, ma shmua u'shema uba. What did he hear that motivated him to come? Kriyat Yamsuf Milchemet Amalek. Those two things specifically. It wasn't that what he heard. Rashi is pointing out, we know what he heard. Rashi is pointing out, what was his motivation? Now, our question is, well, why are those two motivating things? Why are these two ideas, Milchemet Amalek and Kriyat Yamsuf, such a powerful, inspirational piece of information that drives Yitro to come out and join the Jewish people? Well, I think we could think of it like this. Yitro was a very intelligent person. He was the head. It says over here, he was a Kohen Midyan. He was a priest. He was part of the ruling class. He was educated. We know that he was also in Paro's court. He left when he heard about Paro's plan, what he wanted to do with the Jewish people. He was not interested in that. He was a man of peace. He was a man of true wisdom and knowledge. And his curiosity led him to a point where he recognized there's one God. And he even encourages Moshe to go out and go back to Israel to free his people, to be the shepherd of God's children. And he hears all this, but still there's something in him that says, it's not for me. The 10 plagues were not enough. It's something specific about the splitting of the sea and this particular army coming at him. So a couple of things. One is that the Amalekites, why was that motivation? I saw one place that says the reason why he got involved is because there's one midrash that says that Amalek can never convert. And therefore, when he heard that there's going to be a pause in one's ability to, or a inability, a blockage as a result of certain actions, that conversion will not always be open, that is why he was motivated to come out. I got to get in before the doors close. As a matter of fact, I've been told more recently from some of my rabbis across the country that conversion rates in this particular climate, with so much anti-Semitism, with people like, the stuff that happened the last couple of days, in the Super Bowl, taking ads out and driving people to websites, selling ridiculous t-shirts, all the things that we've heard in the last few days, weeks, and months about the anti-Semitism, you would imagine that there would be a huge drop-off of non-Jews being interested in converting to Judaism, but the exact opposite is true. We're seeing non-Jews being more motivated now to get in while they still can. Because we understand that the Chachamim tell us that when Mashiach comes, the doors of conversion are closed. Now is your chance to get in. People are moving. They're not afraid. And what ends up happening is you see that the ridiculous, immoral attack by Amalek vindicates the Jewish people and motivates humanity to recognize Judaism, Jews, and Judaism's greatness. Yitro is motivated by that. I want to get in before it's too late. And as far as dealing with the 10 plagues and why that didn't go ahead and motivate him, because the 10 plagues were unique to Egypt. Maybe that was God just taking revenge on everything that the Egyptians did to the Jewish people. How do I know that God is the God of the universe? But when the Kriyat Yam Suf split, it says that all the water on the planet split. Everyone saw the miracle. Yitro heard about the splitting of the sea. He heard about the Egyptian army drowning in the ocean. He heard about them coming across and singing. At this point, he heard about the manna. He heard about all the miracles that had happened in the desert, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, they're going to hear about the Matan Torah." One opinion says that he Yishma Yitro. What did he hear? He Kol Asher Asa means everything up until Matan Torah, not just like Rashi says, Kriyat Yam Suf and Milchamat Amalek. It means everything, including Aseret Dibrot, which means, according to one opinion, this episode in the beginning of the Parashat actually is out of place. Took place much later, after the giving of the Torah. But I don't want to overcomplicate things. Let's make it pretty simple over here. Yitro hears, he's motivated. Now, it's interesting because you and I would agree that seeing is believing, right? That's the ultimate truth. But that's not what happens here. Yitro is a man of intelligence, and he understands that seeing isn't always believing. Seeing can be manipulated. Hearing is hearing out an argument and clarifying points till you get the truth. And that's what this Pasha is really about. It's about this unique individual, Yitro, who hears about all the miracles that happen to the Jewish people, right? And unlike everything else that happens, Yitro separates, different from everybody else. He's listening, he's reflective, he acts, and he joins the Jewish people, right? Wisdom isn't about knowing. It's about truly listening and responding. Are you open to hearing new perspectives, even from unexpected sources? It's such a relevant message today, right? Moshe is the son-in-law and takes advice from his father-in-law. This is another miraculous thing that happens in this week's Parasha, right? This deep relationship that a son-in-law has for a father-in-law, a deep respect that Moshe has. Yitro sees Moshe judging all the Jewish people, and he knows that he tells him, you can't do this. You're going to be a shmata. You got to delegate. Okay, this is what you're doing is not good. Okay, so Moshe he hears, he doesn't fight back. He's humble. He accepts the criticism, and he implements the change right away. Right, and therefore the second lesson of Parashat Yitro is that aside from being humble and listening, reflecting, and then acting, part of a leadership isn't about doing everything by yourself. It's about empowering others. It's about one of the things I learned as I grew older in the workforce, the workplace, is that it's no longer about how I can do this thing, the project that I'm in. It's about who can do it with me, not how, but who. And that is what Moshe learned over here. And then this second part of the Parasha, the last part of the Parasha, is about the Jewish people at Har Sinai. Na'aseh v'nishma. Matan Torah is a powerful experience that reshapes the Jewish people's lives forever. And what happens? The Jewish people, I just want to pull up the Pesukim one moment over here. Pesukim go like this. I lost it. Pesukim go like this. The Jewish people in the third month, okay, V'yishma Moshe kol chatno, that's what we did already. This is Revi'i now. Okay, B'chodesh HaShlishi, let's say Bnei Yisrael mi'eretz Mitzrayim, in the third month after the Israelites had gone out of Egypt. This is the month of Sivan. This is Matan Torah. V'yusu Merifidim, they traveled from Refidim, V'yavo Midbar Sinai. They came to the Mount of Sinai. V'yachnu b'midbar, and they encamped there. V'yechanu, right? B'midbar, v'yichan sham Yisrael neged har. Famous idea over here. Pasuk says they came to the Midbar Sinai and they camped there in the plural. V'yichan sham in the singular, and they camped there facing the mountain. That the precursor to wisdom and knowledge is unity, bringing all things together. Moshe Allah Elohim, and Moshe goes up the mountain, Vikra Allah, and Hashem calls out to him from the mountain. This is what I want you to tell. LeBet Yaakov, but the key to Bnei Yisrael. Bet Yaakov is the women, and Bnei Yisrael are the Jewish people, the Jewish men. You guys saw everything that I did to the Egyptians. I took you out on the wings of eagles, and I brought you to me, right? When you listen to all of the things that I'm going to impart to you today, and you maintain briti, my covenant, then you will be for me a segula, a treasure. Mikol ha'amim ki li kol ha'aretz. The land is mine. It is my land. V'atem tiyu li mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh. Ela hadvarim asher tdaber el bnei Yisrael. I want you to be this priest class of people. I want you to do amazing things. I'm going to be the guy that takes care of you. But how am I going to do that? Are you willing to sacrifice? Are you willing to find a place where you could humble or hush your own wants and needs and allow yourselves to follow with a deep, profound commitment the laws that I'm going to impart to you? See, some people feel that the laws are just overwhelming. Rabbi, it's too much. I can't do it. I want to do whatever I want. But I have a spoiler alert for you. In a world where you do whatever you want, you end up getting very little at the end. You see, life is set up in a way where sometimes when you have more, you actually have less. And sometimes when you have less, you actually have more. Like Shabbat, definitely have less. I'm not going to the movies. I'm not going to the beach. I'm home. I'm not driving around. I'm not going hiking. It allows me to get myself to this place called being. The whole work week is for me to become. Shabbat is a time for me to be. You can't have a sense of being or belonging, right? Or growth with family and friends and community unless you have proper boundaries, restrictions, or even a vision, which, by the way, is also a boundary. If you have a goal of something you want to achieve, if you have no boundaries, you can't achieve your goal. You can't just stumble into succeeding your goals. You need to have a very clear vision and directive and direction. You can't go wherever you want. You have to create boundaries. And the Parsha over here tells us, you want the Torah? No problem. There's certain things that have to happen here. Number one is you have to become one. Vayichan sham. You became one. And then there's prep work. You want to be a mamlechet kohanim, a goy kadosh. You want to be a nation of priests? No problem. This is what you got to do. So he calls the elderly and he tells them all the things that God commanded them. Whatever God says, we will do. God, now Moshe is the delivery man. He's coming back with information. The Jewish people said, Na'aseh v'nishma. Moses, God says to Moses, I'm going to come to you in the thickness of the cloud. So that the Jewish people will hear when I speak imcha to you, and then they'll also believe in you le'olam, forever. Then Moshe comes back. He says, this is what God told me. He's going to end up speaking through the cloud, and you're going to believe in me as a prophet. Because there's still uncertainty even at this point. Do you understand that? There's still, after everything, the defeat of Amalek, the splitting of the sea, there's still some doubt. This is the nature of a human being, because seeing isn't always believing. V'yishma Yitro, he processes it, he humbles himself, he moves, he comes. V'yu nuchanim liyom shlishi. You want to have God in your life? No problem. You got to prepare for how many days? 3 days. Not 1 day, 3 days. Right? And then the third day, God will come down. Right? You're going to create. The first thing is, v'higbalta et ha'am saviv. You make a boundary for the people, right, around the mountain. Hishamru lachem olot bahar. You can't go up. You can't go up and you can't touch it. Kol anoge bahar. Anyone touches it, the consequence, death. You can't follow rules. You can't be part of this people. Lo tigabo yad. A hand should not touch it. Ki sakol yiskal o yirah. That person will be cast out and will be thrown away. Will be stoned. Whether an animal or a man, if he crosses the boundary to the mountain, he will not be allowed to live. When the ram horn sounds a long blast, right? Only then they could ascend. At some point, everything moves. Then they create the boundaries. Then they go ahead and they prepare the people, right? They have them wash their clothes, and you've got to be clean. Cleanliness is godliness. God does not want to be around someone smelly and dirty. Angels spend more time with you when you make your blessings when you smell clean and you're wearing you have good hygiene. No intimacy. You got to create a boundary, right? You have to prepare yourself. No distraction. Only this meditation for 3 days. On the third day, as Moses said, right? As the morning dawned, there was thunder and lightning and a heavy cloud on the mountain. There's an extremely loud blast of the shofar, and all the people camped and trembled. And Moshe comes out to the people, Likrot Elokim, right? And he comes out, and they're bringing the divine presence before them, from the camp, and they took their place at the foot of the mountain. They're sitting there in awe. Their minds are breaking. Okay, Vahar Sinai Ashan Kula. This is the best light and smoke show ever. Mount Sinai is filled with smoke. It is like a burning mountain. Ba'esh, with fire. The smoke rose up like the smoke of I'm not even sure how to translate that, like I guess a pillar, and the entire mountain quaked violently. Okay? V'hi kol hashofar holech v'chazek ma'od Moshe yidaber Elokim ya'anenu bakol. Right? The sound of the shofar grew increasingly louder. Moshe spoke. God responds to the weakness of his Moshe's weakened mortal voice by amplifying his voice and giving him the sound that he could go ahead and communicate with the Jewish people. Vayirad Hashem, and then God actually comes down to the mountain. So you have the precursor, the rumbling, the lights, the smoke, and now God actually comes down. Al Rosh Hahar, on the top of the mountain. V'yikra Hashem el Moshe al Rosh Hahar v'yal Moshe. And they're all hearing it. And there's a voice that comes down and says, Moses, come up to the mountain. V'yomer Hashem el Moshe. They're all hearing it. Red ha'ed ba'am. Pen yechrosu el Hashem lirof v'nafal mimen arav. Go down and warn the people not to break ranks. Don't break the boundaries. Because if you look inappropriately, right, you might die. There are consequences for greatness. V'gam kohanim, even the priests had to go ahead and make that special protocol of creating boundaries. And then he does this. Okay, fine. And then Moshe comes down, he tells the people, Daber Elokim kol adrim ela. Now God is finally ready to present himself. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I am Hashem, your God. Now, this is what we've been waiting for so long. Up until now, it was unclear who is the creator of the whole entire universe. Bereshit bara Elokim. It sounds in the beginning, Bereshit bara Elokim. Maybe the world always had a beginning. Maybe this thing called Elokim created Bereshit. But how do I know that's my God? No. Vayomer Hashem, right? Vayomer Moshe, he says to the Jewish people, Vaydaber Elokim et kol hadvarim ha'ele lemor, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, asher hoseticha mi'eretz. I am the God that took you out of Egypt, mi beit avadim, from the house of slaves. Don't have any other gods. Don't lose yourselves. There's only one truth in the world. Don't look for distractions and other types of truth. There's only one truth here, my friends, and it's Borei Olam. Okay? So what is the Parashat really about at its core? Right? It is about Yitro listening and changing his life. Moshe listening and became a better leader and became someone who was able to allow the Jewish people to excel and develop themselves to higher states. And lastly, the Jewish people listen and embrace the Torah. How well do we truly listen to others? Do we embrace the wisdom that God has imparted to us through the Torah? Are we just looking, or are we truly listening? Are we allowing ourselves to use our mind to get ourselves to the point like Yitro, where he was able to move away? My friends, the clock is ticking. I don't know what happens this week. We're living in interesting times. But I know at some point there's going to be a revelation of some kind of truth. Truth it always comes out at the end. I'll end with the following story. There were 4 boys who were, they had a test on Monday, and they just weren't ready for it. They went out all night partying. So they came back. They said they're going to tell the principal that their car had a flat tire. And they got mud on themselves and dirt, and they covered themselves and so on and so forth. And they come to the principal the next morning. He's like, what happened? He's like, our car had a flat tire. We had pushed the car all the way here. We didn't sleep. We're tired. We're not ready for this. Give us one more day. Principal says, no problem. I'll give you one more day. They're so excited. They go home. They clean up. They get ready. They study for their test. They come down to the school. Principal's there. And he takes the 4 boys and he separates them. Puts them each into 4 rooms. And they open up the envelope with their test. And the test says, first question, name 1%. That answer is 1% of your grade. The next question, the only other question on the test is, which tire was flat? The truth will come out. I'm not worried about the lies of the crazy people on the planet, but don't worry about them. The lies you need to be most concerned about are the lies we tell ourselves. Because ultimately, every moment of life is a brush with truth that demands some type of action. You want to be someone who accomplishes great things. You want to be someone who's able to achieve greatness. My friends, na'aseh v'nishma. Sometimes you just got to act. Just go do it. But if you can't, at the very least, find the humility to find someone you could ask those difficult questions to, so you could have those truths that motivate you to becoming something bigger and better. Wishing you all a Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for listening. Looking forward to continuing the conversation next week. Shabbat Tov.